What if the person you trust the most is the one silently plotting your end? In the heart of Dubai's skyline, inside a luxurious apartment filled with warmth, laughter, and family memories, something horrifying happened. A woman who once lived a dream life with her husband and daughter was found dead on the cold floor of her home. No signs of struggle, no break-in, no clue. But one thing was certain. This wasn't an accident. Someone close to her had played their final move. And it all began with a lie wrapped in love. Priya had everything, at least that's what the outside world believed. A devoted husband, Aftab, who was running a successful business in Dubai. A charming daughter named Noor, and a home that looked like a page out of a magazine. Friends often said they were the perfect family, but perfection is sometimes just a mask for the secrets we hide. Behind those happy photos and polite smiles was a tale of betrayal slowly simmering, waiting to explode. Her day had started like any other. She dropped Noor at school, made plans for dinner, and spoke to her sister back home in India. Nothing was out of the ordinary until it all stopped. Hours later, Priya's lifeless body was found by Aftab in the apartment. The police arrived, confused. There were no signs of forced entry, no robbery, no signs of struggle, just her body lying there as if she had silently collapsed. But Priya was young, healthy, and full of life. Something didn't add up. The apartment was clean, eerily untouched, not a vase out of place. But the forensics team noticed something strange. There was no food in the kitchen, no scent of spices, no recent cooking. It was as if no one had eaten in days. Her phone was wiped clean, call logs deleted, CCTV footage of the building missing for just that day. How could such precision exist in an unplanned crime? As investigators dug deeper, questions began to pile up. Where had Aftab been during those crucial hours? Why had neighbors said they hadn't seen Priya in days when Aftab claimed she was just fine that morning? And most importantly, why was there no grief in his eyes when he made the call to the police? Then came the twist. One of Priya's close friends revealed that Priya had confided in her weeks ago, telling her that she felt like someone was watching her, even inside her home. She had said that Aftab had changed. He had grown distant, short-tempered, and oddly secretive about money. She feared something was wrong, but she had no proof. Until now, the police tried to question Aftab, but he remained calm. Too calm, he insisted he had been out meeting a business associate when the incident happened. But his alibi had holes. Phone tower records didn't match his statement. And yet there was no evidence. No murder weapon, no bruises, no poison. The autopsy came back inconclusive. Heart failure, it said. But Priya didn't just drop dead. This felt planned. Late one night, a breakthrough came. A deleted file from Priya's cloud backup was recovered. It was a voice note. In it, she said, "If anything ever happens to me, don't trust what you see. The person I love the most might be the one who ends me." It was chilling, and it changed everything. The focus now shifted from accident to murder. Dubai police reopened the case. A full digital forensic sweep of Aftab's devices began. In the meantime, the family back in India was informed. They were shattered. Her mother fainted on the spot. Her sister screamed, "He did this." "I know he did, but feelings aren't evidence." And Aftab still walked free. With growing pressure, Aftab started showing cracks. He stopped cooperating, refused to hand over his laptop, fired his lawyer. It was only a matter of time before the truth came crawling out. But the deeper they dug, the darker the secrets became, and soon a shocking detail emerged, one that no one had expected. What if Priya's death wasn't the beginning, but the final chapter of a betrayal that had started 15 years ago? 15 years before Priya's death, a different woman lived in fear. Her name was Fatima, a kind-hearted young woman from Lucknow who fell deeply in love with a man named Aftab. Their relationship started like a dream. Long phone calls, secret gifts, promises of forever. But Fatima didn't know that she wasn't the only one hearing those promises. Because back then, Aftab already had another life and another woman. Fatima became pregnant. At first, Aftab promised to marry her, but then something changed. He stopped answering calls, avoided her family, and one day vanished. She searched for him, begged his relatives, even went to the police, but she had no proof, no support, and no name on paper. Aftab had simply disappeared. And when Fatima tried to raise her child alone, tragedy struck again. Her baby died within weeks due to complications. She blamed herself, but deep down, she knew. Aftab had broken her, body and soul. Years passed, and the world moved on. But Aftab didn't. He created a new identity, new friends, new love. He met Priya and presented himself as a self-made businessman. She fell for him completely. They married quickly, and soon Noor was born. On the surface, Aftab was a dedicated husband and father. But what Priya didn't know was that the past Aftab buried was still alive, just quieter, watching, waiting. One day, while clearing old boxes in their Dubai home, Priya found a photograph. It was an old ID card tucked into a book bearing the name Arif Khan, but the face was unmistakably Aftab's. When she asked him, he brushed it off, saying it was from a failed business partnership. But her gut told her otherwise. That night, she tried to search the name online, but the browser history was wiped by morning. Priya confided in her friend Annika, who urged her to dig deeper. With Annika's help, they found a shocking piece of information: a police complaint filed by a woman named Fatima in Lucknow against a man named Aftab Alam, also known as Arif Khan. The dates matched. So did the description. Priya was horrified. Who had she married? What kind of man was sleeping beside her every night? But instead of confronting him, Priya made a plan. She started recording conversations, backing up messages, and keeping a secret diary, hiding everything in a password-protected folder in her iCloud. But she didn't know. Aftab had already suspected her. He had installed spyware on her phone months ago, and he was watching her every move. On the night of her death, Priya was planning to leave. Her suitcase was packed, and she had booked a flight to India for the next day. She was going to take Noor and run, but she never made it. The next morning, Aftab called the police, pretending to be in shock, claiming his wife had collapsed overnight. But investigators now believed something far more chilling. Priya had been silenced before she could escape. One of the biggest breakthroughs came from Noor, their daughter. During a child psychologist session, she drew a picture of her mother sleeping and her father standing beside her with a pillow in his hand. "Daddy was hugging Mommy too hard," she said. The room fell silent. The truth was too terrifying to imagine. Dubai police now had enough to reopen the investigation as a murder case. They arrested Aftab for questioning, seized all his electronics, and contacted Interpol for his records in India. What they found blew the case wide open. Aftab had been accused of 2 other disappearances back in India. Both women, both cases unsolved. Meanwhile, Priya's iCloud finally unlocked. Hidden inside were voice memos, screenshots, and journal entries that painted a picture of a woman who had slowly realized she was living with a monster. In one of her final notes, she wrote, "I don't know how this ends, but if I die, please don't let it be in silence." But the silence was about to be broken. Just as the charges were being finalized, a second shocking twist emerged. A message from Fatima, alive, older, stronger, and still carrying the scars of Aftab's betrayal. She came forward ready to testify. She had kept letters, phone recordings, and even a medical file proving the pregnancy Aftab had denied. With her help, the case against him turned from uncertain to unbreakable. And yet, the most shocking reveal was still to come. Inside Aftab's laptop, hidden behind layers of encryption, was a secret file labeled Mukti. Inside it, photos, voice clips, and planning documents, going back 10 years, all proving that Priya's murder wasn't spontaneous. It was planned long before she ever suspected. Aftab sat in the Dubai interrogation room calm, almost too calm. He denied everything. "It was a heart attack," he insisted. "I loved Priya. Why would I harm her?" But his eyes told a different story, cold, sharp, and rehearsed. He had lived with this lie for so long it had become second nature. But Priya's ghost was everywhere. Her diary, her recordings, her daughter's drawing, and now, Fatima, the woman from his past who had returned like a shadow he thought he'd outrun. The police had enough evidence to hold Aftab, but they needed motive, premeditation, and proof of murder beyond reasonable doubt. That's when the digital forensics team cracked the Mukti folder fully. Inside, they discovered something sickening. Aftab had been building a psychological profile of Priya for years, monitoring her insecurities, tracking her movements, even consulting dark web forums about how to stage undetectable deaths. It wasn't a crime of passion, it was a performance, a meticulously rehearsed final act. Emails showed that Aftab had been seeking sleeping drugs under false names. One file even contained a crude mock-up of Priya's obituary, written a full 2 months before her death. It included phrases like "loving wife" and "peacefully in her sleep." Peacefully. There was nothing peaceful about the way Priya died. An autopsy, reconducted under expert forensic guidance, revealed faint bruising around her neck, consistent with smothering. There were traces of zolpidem, a strong sedative, in her blood, far above safe limits. It was murder, hidden under a mask of grief and lies. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. Noor, their daughter, had once filmed a school play rehearsal on her iPad. In the background, a conversation between her parents was accidentally captured. The audio was distorted, but parts were clear enough. "Priya, you think I don't know about Fatima, about your past? I'm not scared of you anymore." Aftab, "Then you're more foolish than I thought. You should have stayed in the dark." It was subtle, but chilling. When confronted with the evidence, Aftab's facade began to crack, not with guilt, but rage. He slammed the table, yelled about being betrayed by women and used and discarded. In that moment, investigators saw the real man behind the mask, a narcissist, a predator, and a killer who couldn't handle being exposed. In court, the prosecution told the story that Priya couldn't. How she fell in love with a man who never truly existed. How she discovered the horrifying truth and tried to escape. And how, in the end, she fought with everything she had, but was silenced before she could run. Fatima testified, calm, brave, telling the world what Aftab had done to her all those years ago. She said, "He took my child, my dignity, my voice, but today, I take back my truth." The jury took less than 2 hours. Aftab didn't cry, didn't flinch. He just stared ahead, stone-faced, like he still believed he had won. But he hadn't. Because for the first time, the women he tried to erase had spoken louder than his lies. Noor was placed under the care of Priya's parents in India, where she began therapy and school again, surrounded by love, not fear. She kept one drawing in her room, a picture of her mother holding her hand, walking away from the darkness. And as for Priya, her story did not end in silence because of her diary, because of her recordings, because of her courage. The world heard her voice,